Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Madon, president of the Biscayne Neighborhoods Association. On behalf of BNA, I welcome you to this Mayoral Debate, which we're proud to host. I do want to thank Ken Griffin for his leadership in Miami and Griffin Catalyst for presenting tonight's debate. I also want to thank our partners at NBC6 and the Miami Herald for moderating this evening. We at the BNA are committed to civic engagement. And good governance is vital to a flourishing Miami. This election is a turning point for our city. Your voice matters. Get informed, get involved. And on election day, make your voice heard by voting. So thank you. Before we get going, I got to give house rules. I'm the guy who gets to share your house rules with you also. So phones off, please, and no photos or videos. Applause. It's great when the candidates come in, but then that's it for the applause. And in between, please do not stand up because we're on live TV. If you do need to leave for any reason, please know that you cannot come back in. Got it? Thank you. So now I would like to bring up Kaysen Carter to say a few words on behalf of Ken Griffin. Kaysen?
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I'm Kaysen Carter. I'm here on behalf of Ken Griffin and the Griffin Catalyst today. You might ask why someone would sponsor a debate, and if you've met Ken, you know why. He encourages all the employees at Citadel and Citadel Securities to be very civic-minded, engage, serve on boards, participate based on their own personal political beliefs, and vote. And so his mission in this is to promote that dialogue, to let the community hear from the leading candidates, to hear about policies that will impact the future of the community. And I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate the BNA for your leadership in bringing this together. And of course, NBC and the Miami Herald, we really thank you for your participation and moderating the debate. So thank you all, and I'll bring up my friend Jeffrey Dorfman.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the BNA Miami Mayoral Debate. I'm glad to see so many friends I hold dear. My name is Jeff Dorfman. I'm board member and treasurer of your host, the Biscayne Neighborhoods Association. People come to America seeking freedom from corruption and tyranny. Yet political corruption harms Miami too. Freedom isn't free. Every American has a civic duty to vote and to consider the lasting impact of their choices on future generations. Please vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to Decision 2025 and the Miami Mayoral Debate. I'm Jackie Nespral from NBC6, along with David Smiley from the Miami Herald, and we are in the beautiful Adrian R. Center in downtown Miami, and we'd like to thank the Adrian R. Center for hosting us here this evening. But let's get back to why we're here. The candidates who are on the stage right now. We have 4 candidates invited by the Biscayne Neighborhoods Association based on a poll conducted by Griffin Catalyst. From left to right, Colonel Emilio Gonzalez, County Commissioner Eileen Higgins, former Commissioner Ken Russell, and former Commissioner and former Mayor Xavier Suarez. These candidates received 10% or more of support in the polls of Miami voters. Joe Carollo, by the way, met the threshold within the margin of error and was invited to participate, but did not commit to attending before the deadline set by the association. So we do have some housekeeping issues. The rules that we have addressed, we've set those rules and that the candidates you have all agreed to. You have 90 seconds to answer each question. We have the discretion to offer a 45-second rebuttal to a candidate mentioned or alluded to in another candidate's answer. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. and candidates were provided with blank paper to take notes and may not have any other materials with them. And finally, no independent film or videotaping is permitted, including for those of you in the audience. Remember, audience, please keep your clapping till the end of the debate. Are you ready? Let's begin. We're going to start with an issue that many people have been talking about, including the candidates, and that's affordability. There is no doubt that affordability is a critical issue. Many residents are struggling with high living costs here in the city and the lack of affordable housing. It is a central issue in the city. What is your proposal to help Miami residents? Emilio, I begin with you.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation and for everybody being here. And I hope you were able to appreciate the fact that all of us here are not just candidates, but we're friends. And we may have a different outlook and different perspectives, but the one thing that unites us up here is the fact that we all want the very best for our city. Affordable housing is something which is constantly, wherever I go, people talk to me about affordable housing. My thing is I really want to support the governor in doing away with property taxes. We can do it. We cannot build people the homes that they want. We can talk about building affordable housing, workforce housing, fine. It's never going to meet demand. What we need to do is be very bold and say, you know what? If the city of Miami only gets less than 10% of its budget from ad valorem taxes, let's find 10% savings. Our budget has grown 100% in 5 years. There's got to be some place where we could do those savings. We need to make it affordable. We need to help people with their child care. We need to help people with their elder care. If you take that off the table, Miami becomes more affordable. It is against federal law to create a new housing authority, but there are ways to get around it. There are ways to support it. There are ways to get the federal government and the state government to help us in this endeavor. But the problem is huge, mainly because of our population growth.
Emilio, thank you for that. Eileen, I'm going to address it to you. What is your plan for affordable housing and affordability in the city of Miami?
The only way to solve our affordability crisis is to actually build affordable housing. One of the ways that local governments can help the best is by looking at and using its own land to allow for affordable and workforce housing to be built. That is something I have done at the county in my district with over 60 acres of county-owned land. That needs to be done at the city. For example, let's talk about the soccer stadium. I'm not going to lie, I'm excited about having soccer in Miami. But on that entire huge piece of acreage, there's not one single unit of housing. That is where the city needs to change. It needs to activate its own housing. We also do need to look at homestead exemptions for folks that own their own homes. But we have to remember that 70% of the people that live in our city are renters. And so only working on property taxes for homestead owners does not help people who are renters. We have got to make sure we are adding units, particularly on city-owned land. There are many ways that we can finance things. Like we have at the county, I revised all of the work around the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We could have one of those at the county, at the city. We also, at the county, reduced impact fees for affordable and workforce housing to make it less expensive for developers and private owners to build affordably.
Eileen, thank you. Ken, what is your plan?
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for hosting this, not only to the sponsors, but to all of you, our bosses, who are relying on us for the real solutions of affordable housing, because that is the crisis that Miami is facing. It's the big reason I'm back. I disagree with a lot of what is said here. These are some Band-Aids, and some of them are wrong. But what our residents realize is that our government is not providing the true housing solutions. The rent is too high, the mortgage is too high, the taxes are too high. We can't afford. What we can't afford is corruption anymore. It's the actual corruption in the city hall that's keeping us from passing good policy. It's wasting our dollars that could be otherwise spent. $30 million have been spent on the attorneys representing unethical commissioners that are now running for mayor. They're not on this stage tonight, but they are running, and Miami has this choice. The real solutions have to do with municipal tools that I've been working on while I was a commissioner for 2 terms The federal tax credits aren't going to save us. The county land isn't going to save us. Putting a bunch of numbers on the board for developers isn't going to save us if it's not producing true affordability. Step one, we've got to keep our residents in their homes. I'm proposing senior exemptions on taxes in the city of Miami. Qualifying seniors that have had their home more than 25 years, no more city taxes. These are simple but very specific fixes for the most vulnerable to make sure they can stay in their homes. And then we can work on real affordability at true rates throughout the city.
Ken, thank you. Xavier?
I want to echo what Emilio said about this forum. It brings to mind something that Lincoln said when he said, all we've done is show the world that democracy isn't chaos. That's not a reference to another debate that we had. James, I'm sorry, I don't want to in any way hint at that. But this is a heck of a fine set of procedures that you have implemented tonight. And there's two kinds of affordability. One is government subsidized affordable housing, and the other one is affordability for the rest of us, okay, that don't have government subsidized housing. And we all agree, I think most of the studies show that more than 50% of Miamians spend 70% of their disposable income on housing and transportation. My proposal on housing is very clear. Government is part of the problem because we have a homestead exemption that is 1/10 of what the value is of a home in Miami-Dade and in the city of Miami, which is $500,000, the median value of a home. We need to increase the homestead exemption to that amount, and I know it's going to take a little bit of sharpening of the, the cutting edge there in the city of Miami for the budget, but I know we can do it. The other part is transportation. Free transportation, free Metro Mover, and extend the trolley system to all corners of the city and to the county.
Thank you, Xavier.
Emilio touched on our next question, which is that Governor DeSantis wants Floridians to vote in November of 2026 to eliminate property taxes. That would lower residents' bills, but also eat into a major source of city revenue. Eileen, do you support that proposal? And how would you cut spending or bring in new money if a major property tax elimination happens?
I'm glad that folks up in Tallahassee are looking at alternative ways to fund local government. But you're right, we depend now for all of our public safety, whether it's the police that keep our neighborhood safe, the fire department that shows up your home when there's an emergency, the ambulance that takes your mother to the hospital if she's had a heart attack. So getting rid of property taxes without finding an alternative way to funding local government, that's what I'm hoping comes out of the work in Tallahassee. I will certainly be open to looking at alternatives that don't mean that all of us here live without public safety, without beautiful parks, are unable to maintain our streets and our parks. It is always smart to look deeply into the budget. Let me be very clear in the city of Miami. We all know that property taxes, property values have gone way the heck up. And so there is a deep dive that needs to be done into the budget in the city of Miami to find out how and where money can be saved, services can be streamlined, so that we can, whatever the decision is in Tallahassee, we can be reducing property taxes for our residents here, whatever happens there.
Thank you. Ken, should Floridians vote to eliminate their property taxes, and what do you do if they do?
It's very kind of the government at the at the state level. It's very kind of Governor DeSantis to give away city tax dollars. This is not state revenue that he's bartering with. But the proposal that Emilio has even offered, which mirrors his endorsed sponsor DeSantis, would eliminate our police and fire budget entirely. This is basically $500 million if we just eliminate it. So it sounds nice. Everybody likes it. Do you like puppies and rainbows? Yes, I'll vote for that. But the reality is there is no true solution. We need to honor our home rule charter and fight for that so that the state doesn't overstep. We can set our own millage. We do that every year. And that's the big lie that Mayor Suarez has told over and over again. Your taxes are lower than they've ever been. It's not. We pay our bills, we know. The tax rate is lower than it's ever been. The millage is the game. The millage is the rate you pay. And every year the city can set that millage. They can even set what's called a rollback millage, which means we'll keep the budget exactly the size it was last year. But the truth is, 10 years ago, the budget was less than $1 billion. It's now 3.5 just for the city of Miami. And you don't feel a tripling of services. So what I'm recommending is a true rollback rate that means your millage for the average house, homesteaded house, will be the same or less than it was last year. That's the millage I would set, and we as a government have to work around that and find the savings.
Thank you, Ken. Xavier, should voters get rid of their property taxes?
Before
I don't need a
Xavier
rebuttal.
starts, because there's a rebuttal on Emilio, because you mentioned Emilio in yours. So we're going to give you 45 seconds, Emilio.
Listen, I don't feel I need a rebuttal, but I will tell you, the city of Miami's budget today is 100% bigger than it was 5 years ago. When you add a $400 million resiliency and affordable housing bond that was approved under Mayor Regalado, and you add on top of that $130 or $140 million in ARPA funds during COVID, we can find a 9% savings, which is what a city depends on for homestead property taxes. If you're having trouble with making your budget at home, you go to your spouse and you say, honey, we got to cut back, okay? We can do this without having to affect fire and police. It's just a matter of, to what Eileen said, do a deep dive in the budget. How are we spending our money? I think our taxpayers do. It's not a loaded question. Tell me how we're spending your money.
We're going to have to leave it there.
Xavier?
I just wanted to say I don't need a rebuttal to the reference to Mayor Suarez. That's the other Mayor Suarez, the rookie. What the governor's proposing makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The Herald did an analysis of what it would cost statewide is $38 billion or something. And I don't want to criticize any of my opponents because I want to get to the real meat of how we can do this. We can do it with increasing the homestead exemption to what a median value of a home is in Dade County. I think Emilio may have made reference to what that would entail in terms of the city budget. I think he's high at 8 or 9%. I think it's more like 5% at the most. Only 30% of Miamians even own their homes. And the property tax, the real estate property tax for the city of Miami is about less than a third of the operating budget. So my guess, estimate, superficially, because Miami also has enormous disparity. My home cost me $199,000 25 years ago. Next to me, they're building a condo that the upper units sell for $15 million. I pay $4,000 a year. They're going to be paying $300,000 a year. So increasing the homestead exemption to the median value of a home is doable. The chairman of the county commission supports it. He's a Republican. The vice chairman of the county commission supports it. He's a Democrat. He wants to double that amount. So does the speaker and the representative from our district. It's going to happen.
Thank you.
I get a rebuttal?
Emilio? No, now you can answer the question.
Oh,
Okay.
Emilio, yeah.
The-
The governor wants, you spoke about it in your first answer, the governor wants to reduce, to eliminate property taxes.
Listen,
How do you cut spending?
You cut spending by taking the fat out of the budget. Like I said, I can't imagine anybody growing a budget 100% in 5 years. You know, where is it? When you talk to residents, you know, it's not like, you know, we're living large with a $3 billion budget. You know, a 10% haircut on a $3 billion budget is $300 million. That's not insignificant. My concern is the city of Miami. I will posit that there are probably some counties up north, very small counties with very small towns, that depend on property taxes for maybe 70, 80, 90% of their budgets. That's their issue, and I'm sure that will be handled at the state level. But as far as we're concerned, listen, I think that what we're seeing here now is the governor, and again, I'm not his cheerleader, but I agree with him. He put a marker down. Property taxes are too high. Whether we increase the exemptions or whether we try something else, the bottom line is for us, those of us here in Miami, we pay an inordinate amount of tax. By the way, we also pay a death tax because our kids can't afford to inherit our homes. Because my house today, if they inherit it, they pay at the value that they inherited at. My daughters are going to have to sell my home because they'll never be able to live in it. So these are the things that we have to tackle. And the governor put a marker down, and I'm willing to go into that fight with him.
Thank you.
Okay, the next topic is traffic congestion. which many complain about in the city. The state of public transportation and traffic continue to be problems in Miami. As the new mayor, what is your plan to improve infrastructure and pay for expanded public transit? Ken, I begin with you.
Well, the first thing is we need to build housing that's near people's work and school so that they don't have to commute further and further away. It's not dodging the question to say that as families can't afford to live in Miami, they have to commute further and further, which exacerbates the need for public transit. Now, the city of Miami has very little leverage on what happens with transit because the county controls that. I had to ride the Metro Mover here today from Brickell, and the escalator was broken. I asked if anyone knew who my county commissioner was to get that fixed. But it's very important that we as a city actually figure out what we can do. We have a trolley system. It needs to remain free. It needs to be expanded, and it needs to mesh with what the county is already offering. And then we need to sit on the Transportation Planning Organization to actually be a stakeholder and advocate for expansion of real Metro Rail so that all these companies that are moving here can actually service new employees that don't have to commute further and further away.
Eileen, do you want to have a rebuttal for that? Who's the county commissioner?
His county commissioner is Raquel Regalado.
It was in Brickell.
Would you like to respond to that?
Here's what I can tell you about our precious Metro Mover, which many of us here in this neighborhood use all the time. Before I got on the county commission, there had been no major repairs to that system in almost 40 years. I was able to advocate for, plan, and get funding for nearly $150 million renovation to upgrade the entire control system. It's a little bit like open heart surgery on our Metro Mover. We got to do the bottom half, we got to do the vehicles. That's what's happening mostly at night and sometimes on Saturday mornings. So that system, this is what happens when you do not have someone who rides public transportation all the time in all its forms in elected office. The commission had not funded that upgrade. When I got there, I made that happen. It's happening now. We have about another year to wait. So
You're going to have an opportunity to answer the question in just a moment, but I now turn to Xavier. And how would you improve infrastructure in the city of Miami, and how would you pay for it?
Winston Churchill once said, defined a term called squander mania. And he said it's like when a man gets up in the morning really early and he goes to buy dog food and spends all day looking for a dog to feed it to. Squander mania is the best definition for what the county has done with the half-cent sales tax in 2022. It was passed and it was put under the authority of a citizens' independent transportation trust. Okay, that money has been used, it should have been used to do the 4 additional branches. And by the way, Miami Central is more or less in the middle. I put together the deal for that with my son. And the community benefits that went along with that required or allowed all Overtown residents to use the Northeast line for free, which is now Brightline, but it's going to be a commuter train. And I made sure that the commuter train had stops in all the inner city areas that are important. Wynwood, Edison, I guess the next one was Little Haiti, and then North Miami. Some other commissioners didn't like that, and I fought them with sunshine meetings. As Ken said, let's continue what is working, which is the city of Miami, which is free Metro Mover. Anyone that wants to charge $1,200 a year to use a Metro Mover is going in the wrong direction, and free trolleys. And we need to do that in the county.
Okay, Emilio, so you're talking about skimming the budget. How would you pay for public transportation?
Listen, the challenge we have here with public transportation is that in Miami, people will take their car to drive 2 blocks, okay? And that's a reality. Very few people, unless you live in an area where the transportation is available, like in the urban core, very few people will use it. We have a situation where we have a trolley system. The trolley system is not necessarily the best kept trolley system. It doesn't go to as many places as you want it to go. I remember when I was working in the county, we had bus routes there that only had 2 people a day because certain politicians wanted buses to go to their areas and it didn't matter how much it cost. We need smart development, and we need to encourage people to use the vehicles that they have as least amount of time as possible. One of the fortunate things that we have is all of these beautiful skyscrapers here. You know, thank God people aren't filling those skyscrapers or buying them as second homes. If they all lived there and they brought 2 or 3 kids, we would run out of space in Miami. We don't have schools for these kids. But transportation is one spoke of how we address the issues of our urban core. Everybody wants to live in Miami. We don't have a marketing budget in the city of Miami. Everybody knows where we're at. And I think all of us have great ideas on how to solve this issue because our residents are expecting us to do it. I'm not going to stand here and say, hey, look, if you elect me, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D, because it's going to take more than A, B, C, and D. It's going to take sitting down with other stakeholders and saying, we all recognize the problem, let's do something about it.
Eileen, what is your plan?
Well, first of all, the Transportation Planning Organization is the overarching body that's responsible for developing new modes of transportation. The City of Miami has a seat on that group, as I do as a county commissioner. Their representative, the current Mayor Suarez, has only come 2 times in 8 years. So the City of Miami has been asleep at the wheel and missing from the conversation. So when the county was working to expand Baylink, to build Metromover over to Miami Beach, the only voice heard in the room was the City of Miami Beach saying, we don't want those working people to come over here on transportation. Not a single commissioner in the City of Miami said, our people are trapped in traffic. We need to make sure the Metromover is expanded. The Northeast Corridor, that has been my project for over 5 years now, and that is going to bring true commuter rail between downtown and Aventura. This year, when we had a change of government up in Washington, last year, I was successful at getting $489 million in President Biden's budget. With the change of administration, we didn't want that money to be lost. I went to Washington numerous times. I'm proud to say that that investment remains in the current federal budget so we can build commuter rail in places like Midtown, the Design District, Little Haiti, North Miami, and beyond. And the trolley has got to get better. Matter of fact, we have a whole system to make it better. The commissioners did not implement it when the county paid for the study to make that happen.
We're going to have
years
to leave
ago.
it there. Thank you.
She mentioned absent Miami commissioners. I think that was me.
I did not say that.
Okay.
You are
let's
channeling.
Let's move on.
We're going to move on. The next question goes to Xavier. Miami's Stormwater Master Plan identifies a whopping $3.8 billion in flooding fixes necessary to keep the city dry. Is that a priority for you? What neighborhoods need the quickest attention, and how do you pay for that?
The one sponsoring this debate is probably one of the ones that needs it the most. Edgewater is just going through a very difficult time. The grade, the elevation right next to most of the buildings is like 3 feet. So you got problems because our stormwater works with gravity, and so when it gets close to the sea level, to the shore, it gets a little difficult, and we have to use pumps. Not enormous seawalls, whoever came up with that idea. We need to let the water come in using living shorelines. When it comes into many of the shoreline areas of Miami or in parks, it comes into the park, leaves some sediment, turns out to be totally good sediment, healthy for the parks, and it goes back out, as happens in the park that I like to run in, which is Alice Wainwright. Sunny day flooding during king tides, if they combine with a storm, all of a sudden you have a problem. And because we have twice the sea level rise that the West Coast has, and Key West. And that's probably because of the Gulf Stream. And it's slowing down, and then it rises by Bernoulli's law. But we have to tackle these things intelligently. Don't build up streets. That just causes flooding next door. And don't put enormous seawalls. Let the water come in and it goes back out, and eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to control it by raising the neighborhoods close to the shoreline.
Thank you, Xavier. Emilio, how high is that on your list, and where do you direct those resources?
It's high on the list. Miami's built on a swamp, and the reality is we don't even have to worry about king tide. All we get is a light shower, and all of a sudden Brickell is underwater. And if you go to the northern parts of the city, the houses are like this far off the sea level. That's a challenge. It's a challenge for us because that's the way our city was developed. We took, when we did the bond issue that I mentioned earlier, $300 million of that was for resiliency. First of all, I'd like to know how we spent that, or are we spending that, because before we can go to the state or to the federal government and say, hey, we could use your assistance, we're going to have to show them how we spent what we have. I had the fortune when I was city manager, I was invited to visit the Netherlands. And if anybody knows how to control water, it's the Dutch. 20% of the Netherlands is reclaimed land from the North Sea. And they walked me through Rotterdam and all the things that they do. They looked at Miami cursory and said, you know, all you have to do is put up a 10-meter wall 50 miles out and then put a huge gate in front of the Miami River and you've solved your flooding problem. Well, we're not going to do that. You're not going to convince people we need a 30-foot wall along 50 miles of shoreline. So my thing would be, let's look at what we've done with the money. There are studies at what needs to be done. We do have the pumps, but we also have to recognize the geography of where we live in. We can mitigate this. Will we ever be able to end it? I doubt it.
Thank you. Eileen?
Yes, this is a top priority. We know that there's flooding happening all over the city, and sometimes we think about it just as coastline. Places like Edgewater, certainly Shorecrest, Brickell. But I can tell you, as the person that represents Little Havana, they have flooding too. The limestone means we've got things going up. The Miami Forever bond, which we approved when Tomás Regalado was mayor, has still not been activated to do all of the resiliency projects we voted for it to do. Part of the root cause of this is the city's abominable permitting system. Even if you have a project ready to go, it can take 2 to 3 years to permit a resiliency project. And that is, in this case, you're talking not only is time money, because for every one of these major infrastructures, when it's delayed 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you can be looking at cost overruns by over 40%. But in our case, we're also battling with time, right? Storms are getting stronger. Water levels are going up. And we cannot have these resiliency projects delayed by a disastrous permitting system. So permitting reform, in addition to activating the projects that are in the Miami Forever bond, we've got to do those things at the same time. Permitting is going to be something I'm going to be starting working on the first week I'm in office.
Thank you. Ken?
The good news is that storm surge and sea level rise is a bipartisan issue on which there should not be any disagreement. Unfortunately, the current climate at the national level is starting to make it a bad word again. At the very first debate we had a few weeks ago, half the candidates said that the science is out still on sea level rise and that they would hire a scientist to take a look at it. We don't need to take a look at it. We need to adapt and we need to invest. The adaptation includes changes to our zoning code. Like in Coconut Grove, I allow for a third story through an ordinance amendment that I created at the waterfront homes that they can do a wash-through floor now. Where the limit used to be 25 feet, they can do that third floor as long as that bottom floor is can wash through with water and be uninhabitable. That's an adaptation strategy. Investment is the Miami Forever bond. And back when it was okay for a conservative to talk about sea level rise, Tomás Regalado helped champion this with me. And it took me 2 years as a commissioner to get it on the ballot. Then Commissioner Suarez, who is now Mayor Suarez, voted against it, said it looked like a tax increase, but it wasn't. So I got a bipartisan group together to help campaign so that residents understood this wasn't a tax increase, and it created $400 million for us, half of which is for storm surge and sea level rise. These are the types of things we can do. And then I reached out to Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, again, a bipartisan partnership, to talk about the back bay study. And the Army Corps is willing to bring $8 billion here to help us with this, but not with a great seawall. Just like Xavier said, we need a green-gray infrastructure hybrid.
Thank you.
We're going to switch gears now and talk about trust in the city of Miami. That has been another theme that has emerged during the campaign, and that is lack of trust in city government. As mayor, Emilio, how would you fight perceived corruption in the city and restore the residents' trust?
That's a great question. Thank you. When I walk the neighborhoods, I'm astounded by the low level of trust and respect that our residents have regarding our municipal government. I go with this, hey, I want to talk to you about all these things, and people stop me and say, no, stop. come back when they're all in prison. And I'm like, well, senor, I'm sorry, but, I may not be able to do that. I'm not a police officer. But your question is very serious. No matter what we do here, no matter what we talk about, no matter what plans we put forward, our residents have to believe that we have their best interest at heart. They have to believe that we really want to make our city better and we want to move forward. That starts with what I call governability. We need honesty, we need integrity, we need to have absolutely no space between what is honest and what is dishonest. And we need to make sure that people that behave in a way that could otherwise embarrass us, if not be in prison, they need to be fired. I propose putting the Citizens Bill of Rights in every city office. People need to understand what their rights are. We've not done a very good job of taking care of the families. That's why I call it my Family First agenda. We've done a very good job of taking care of individual politicians, building up their war chests, looking for their next place where they want to run for, but people will not believe a thing we do unless they believe in us. And that's what I want to instill in our residents.
Thank you, Emilio. Eileen, you would be moving from the county to the city. So what would be your plan to once again gain the residents' trust?
First of all, I think the residents know I have a track record of being trustworthy and acting as an honest broker with my almost 8 years on the county commission. But those of us that live in the city of Miami, and when we watch the shenanigans that go on the dais and in the administration, it is shocking, right? They are wasting tens of millions of dollars defending themselves from frivolous lawsuits when people are abusing their power to put small businesses out of business. The list of highly paid employees in the manager's office and in the mayor's office, that have outside employment. What do you mean you have outside employment? You're making more than $100,000 off the taxpayers? You have another job? No, your only job is the people of the city of Miami. All of those things have to stop. We have to put an administration in focus that is always about service to the resident, getting things done for the people. Their permits need to be issued. Our streets and drains need to be unclogged. Trees need to be planted. And these folks have other jobs that have nothing to do with the city. That is going to start with appointing a city manager who is trustworthy, who is honest, and is free of corruption.
Thank you, Eileen. Ken, you and I spoke about trust when I interviewed you. What is your plan to bring trust back into city government?
My dad used to say, don't ever trust someone who says, trust me. And so I've made a habit of not saying that, but rather speaking with my actions. And I served 2 terms on the City of Miami Commission with ethics and dignity without one complaint. I led the commission with as much decorum as possible in a complete circus. And there are many candidates running that I don't trust as far as I could throw them. I have to say, this potential team of rivals actually would be a great advisory board that I would put my trust in. And
would you bring them on board as your advisory board?
I would be honored to work with anyone on this stage.
Can't afford me.
And we don't have to agree on everything. That's beautiful, but you can trust each other. And that's what Miami is lacking in their elected officials. They really don't trust it, and we have not earned it. The big thing, though, that I'd like to stress is not to give up on the crisis we face of affordable housing or whether or not our government can redeem itself. Please have hope and please come out and vote. That's why the turnout is so low. 25,000 people will vote in this race in a city of 500,000 people. And that shows how little they trust us. So you need to choose somebody this year that can turn that around, that's willing to do the hard transformational work, really disruptive work to everything to regain that trust.
Thank you, Ken. Xavier, you served 2 terms as mayor of the city of Miami. A lot has changed since then. How would you bring trust to city government?
And 9.5 years as a county commissioner, which has a major problem, okay? Some of the ways in which we need to reform government, and I tried to do that, and I did do it in the city of Miami, has to do with bidding, okay? One other issue that I should bring up is zoning and rezonings. Part of it is to stand up against the developers who want to overdevelop, want to move to UDB. or want to develop waterfront properties that we need to have green, as I have done 40 years of politics. And Ken did that very well in the city. When I was elected, Rosario Kennedy came in with me. So we already had 2 votes of people who thought straight about rezonings that weren't warranted. The second way that corruption sneaks in is by what the county has, and the city used to have it too, but less and less, which is negotiated bidding, okay? The bureaucrats and the lawyers and everybody, not this lawyer, will tell you, you can't do professional services, okay? Because they're not fungible. You can't do that competitively. When I was elected in 1985, I said, we can do it for bond counsel. The Herald, by the way, criticized me for it. I don't know why. And then I said, we can do it for bond counsel. They're comparable. The bureaucrats said they're not fungible. Yes, they are. And we took them from the Blue Book, all the firms. We made it competitive. I think Ackerman bid. Greenberg-Traurig won. $175 an hour. We opened the bids right in front of the commission. That's what we need to do. The county doesn't have that.
Thank you.
For the most part.
Thank you, Xavier. Do you need a rebuttal, by the way, because you mentioned the Miami Herald?
I don't think so.
They can't rebut that one.
We're going to pivot now to immigration. In June, when Miami commissioners voted to partner the city's police with ICE on immigration enforcement with a 287G task force agreement, the city's police chief said only 3 officers would initially be trained to participate in this program. Eileen, is that enough? How involved do you want Miami police in immigration enforcement?
I don't want them involved at all. I think this vote was really sad and tragic. And it is just a reflection of this trickle-down hatred that is happening, where we are now being asked to look at every single person that walks on the street and think of them as something other than human. It is wrong. This is such a terrible thing to do, and I was saddened when the city did vote for 287G. We need our police keeping our neighbors and our neighborhoods and our parks safe. The city had another choice, right? Mayor Javier Fernandez from South Miami chose to go to court to get it clarified whether or not municipal governments were forced to sign this agreement. And the city should have joined that lawsuit. They should have taken the time to do that. The police should not be scaring people. And our City of Miami police officers have pivoted very deeply and intentionally to community-based policing. And that is a trust-based form of policing. When we are aligning ourselves with immigration folks, that's their job. That is what will unlock the trust that is being built, that is helping keep crime lower. It is a tragedy that we are talking about putting human beings in cages rather than in homes.
Thank you. Ken, where do you stand on the city's police being involved in immigration enforcement?
Miami is the greatest immigrant city in the entire country, and we have the opportunity to be that example to the rest of America of how our story is a good one, that immigrants contribute to our community. They're not a liability, and they're not criminals. Criminals are criminals, no matter where they come from, here or there. I'm totally against the 287G. Our police force has no business in federal immigration enforcement. I wish Commissioner Higgins had spoken up more on this issue as a sitting elected official. When DeSantis commandeered county property for the Alligator Alcatraz, the county did nothing. They had the most standing of anyone to stand up and say, this is our property. We want in this lawsuit with the Miccosukee tribe, with the Friends of the Everglades, to make sure that overreach of state and federal government doesn't step on our home rule and our ability to represent our residents. In fact, Donald Trump wants to bring his library here. Will anyone stop it? The Colonel would welcome it. We need to say that the Freedom Tower is our beacon of immigration. And I'll make a deal. The art of the deal, you want to hear my deal? If Donald Trump is willing to go back to his original immigration promise of going after criminals, violent criminals, and not attacking our residents for their profile, I'll cut the ribbon with you.
Eileen, you were mentioned. Would you like a rebuttal?
Well, yes. On the county commission, I did submit legislation to be placed on the agenda at the county commission to our chairman. He has, against the Alligator Alcatraz situation, he has yet to allow that to be placed on an agenda.
Ken, if I could ask a follow-up, the governor and attorney general have certainly suggested that cities that openly reject a 287G agreement, officials are subject to severe punishment, perhaps removal from office. Is that something that you would be willing to try?
I think this is the reason that the county didn't stand up. The fear of being taken out of office by an oppressive state government is what keeps career politicians from standing up. It's the consequence, the fear of consequence. True courage as an elected official is not caring if you lose your job. This isn't our career. This is our public service for a few years. And if the governor takes it away from me, I'll find other ways to help.
Okay, thank you. Xavier, immigration enforcement, how involved do you want the city's police in that issue?
I came to the United States when I was 12 years old. 24 years later, I was able to become a citizen, to vote, and to run for office, and became mayor of one of the most exciting cities in the world, really. There's no other country in the world that would allow that, by the way. So I'm pro-immigration all the way. But we have to be careful. One time, this is an interesting story, we had 125 immigrants living in one house on 12th Avenue. Cesar Odio was the manager. He said, Mayor, we got to find these folks a place. And I said, yes. And I have the best place available, Bobby Maduro Stadium. We have a lot of space there. We'll get food and we'll get supplies, and there's electricity and water. I said, let's do it. Cesar, but you got to let the federal government know that you're moving people, okay? You've got to have strict control of who comes into the United States, and I happen to be pro-immigration, so I like to relax a lot of the quota systems and allow more people in. And by the way, this country needs it. You know, we're below replacement level in native demographic growth. And so we need to allow people to come in here in much larger numbers, but we have to do it in an orderly fashion. I don't want the city police to become agents of immigration, but I do want to correspond with the federal government, share information, and make sure that we do get the criminals that you were referring to.
Thank you. Emilio, the governor, who has endorsed you, wants local police all in on helping the state and feds with immigration enforcement.
So am I answering the immigration question or the presidential library response?
It's up to you. You know the question.
Listen, to Xavier's point, the fact that I, as an immigrant, was the head of the immigration service is something that doesn't happen anywhere. So I carried a heavy emotional load. I still have my paperwork from when I came to this country. The last thing the city of Miami needs right now is to get into another argument and other lawsuits with the state. We have an abysmal relationship with our state. In fact, our relationship is so bad, I can't remember the last time our governor visited Miami. He comes all the way around. He goes to the beach, he goes to Gable. He doesn't come here, okay? 287G, as I understand it, is a requirement by the state. If the police chief tells me I can fulfill this requirement with 3 officers and we're going to go out and chase the worst of the worst, perfect. Let's do it. I will always, always advocate for our residents. I will always advocate for our immigrant community, all of our immigrant communities. But I will never advocate for thugs, rapists, thieves, and murderers that are walking the streets in other cities that aren't being turned over to federal authorities because they've decided to declare war against the Department of Homeland Security. I will do what the law says, and I will work with my chief of police. And if he tells me that those 3 officers, it's onerous, we'll have that discussion. If he wants more, we'll have that discussion. If he wants to bring it down to 1, we'll have that discussion. But I'm certainly not going to start a war with the state of Florida over this issue.
Thank you.
Eileen, there's no doubt that Miami has grown leaps and bounds, especially on a global scale, becoming a magnet for business and tech. Mayor Suarez, the current mayor, put a lot of emphasis on creating that, and the city will be holding the America Business Forum that Ken Griffin will be a part of as well, and it'll be bringing some of the most influential people in politics, in tech, and in business. So do you agree with that approach to growing the city of Miami?
I agree that we have got to have interesting, fabulous companies thinking about being here and living here and moving their headquarters here. What we've got to make sure we do is that all of those high-paying jobs aren't taken by outsiders, that our folks are educated and ready to take them. And that's why, for example, in artificial intelligence, we've got a lot of AI companies here. I wrote the legislation. We were the first county in America to have an artificial intelligence policy. And the county, through this process, partnered with Miami-Dade College, FIU, and beyond to make sure there's technical training programs so that we have people prepared for these AI jobs. The Miami Tech Works is another fantastic program that is certificate-based that takes low-income residents and low-paying service jobs, trains them up into the skills, and we have over 100 companies, tech companies, providing internships for folks, whether they're from Little Havana or Little Haiti or Liberty City. So the key to the success is to make sure the Magic City continues to be the place these interesting firms want to innovate. But we have to make sure that we have the educational network, and that is happening with Miami-Dade College, to feed that workforce directly into those jobs. We have to benefit from all of this investment too.
Eileen, thanks. Ken, do you believe that tech and finance is the vision for the city of Miami and its future?
I'll give Mayor Francis Suarez the credit for cheerleading tech and finance to invest in Miami, but I give him an absolute poor grade on leveraging that investment in Miami for the residents who live here now. This is the classic tale of two cities. We must welcome investment in our community. We must allow that investment to benefit those who live here now. There is no way that someone's taxes should have tripled over the last 10 to 20 years if we're seeing all this new influx of funds coming in. So those adjustments to the millage that we can do to lower our residents' taxes, those affordable housing opportunities that we can offer, that all can be born on the new investment that comes to Miami. So yes, welcome it, encourage it, make it happen, open the doors, but do not leave our residents behind like our current mayor has.
Thank you, Ken. Xavier, you told me that your son, the current Mayor Suarez, was one of the best spokespersons for the city of Miami.
Yeah,
Do you believe that, and do you believe that's the way to go?
Clearly, the only person that I even compare him to was Maurice Ferre, my predecessor, in terms of national and international renown, and of course, bringing high tech and fintech to Miami. You know, that was just an inflection point for Miami when he did the famous "How can I help?" at the same time as all the people in Silicon Valley were feeling uninvited to California, and they all started coming here. And they come here for a lot of reasons, not just because Mayor Suarez said, come here, we'll welcome you. The weather obviously is important. Very low crime, very low crime. When I was elected in '85, that was 4 years after Paradise Lost in the cover of Time magazine, we had 300 homicides that year. Now, this year, I don't think we're going to reach 30. So there's a lot of good things that have been done. And here's what happens from the standpoint, and I think that your reporter, Franco, is out there, not Franco, Max Claver is out there, and he was talking about economic mobility. Here's what happens. All this incredible growth and people wanting to buy our homes, et cetera, has a trickle-down effect for one variable, which is jobs. So our unemployment rate is 1.8%, but it also has a trickle-up effect for housing costs. And that's why we have to attack the first question that you asked, which is housing costs and transportation costs. And I'll be talking more about those two as we go.
Xavier, thank you. Emilio, do you think tech and finance is the way to go for the city of Miami?
I think tech and finance are part of the way to go. Listen, and I echo, I think the current Mayor Suarez has done yeoman's work as a chief marketing officer, as being a spokesman, of bringing in new companies. I used to own a boat, and if you're on Biscayne Bay and you look at our skyline, you see all these beautiful, gorgeous buildings. But then you go 5 blocks in, and you see people that are really struggling. We need to have a balance. I think Miami is a world-class, or can be a world-class tech center, but Miami is a current world-class cultural center. Miami is a current world-class international medical center. Miami is a world-class international sports center. There are so many things that come into Miami that can be developed, but there has to be a balance. You have to develop that with the people that live here. Having all of these big companies coming, and to Eileen's point, they need to hire local, not bring in their workers. All these big companies coming is wonderful. It increases our tax base. But you know what? The guy trying to open a restaurant, he can't get a permit to be able to serve these people that are coming. So there's got to be a balance where you can bring in all of this high tech, all of this high net worth industries, if you will, but it has to be more than a trickle down effect. We really have to make sure that the people on this side of the skyscrapers are going to enjoy the benefits of having everybody in the city.
Emilio, thank you. We're going to move on to some rapid fire questions. You will each have 15 seconds. They're just a couple of questions. I'm going to begin with Ken. If you were to grade the current mayor, Francis Suarez's performance in office, what would it be?
I did say F, but I'm going to change it to a G for grift. And I don't mean that in a very rude way, but to see that his net worth has gone up $12 million in the last 2 years with zero disclosure of where that money came from gives me a very big concern. And so that needs to change.
Thank you. Xavier?
I got to go home tonight to my wife. A++. We've had some disagreements, and some have been covered by the press, and we have some things that will be changed a little bit in terms of staffing and other things, but you'll see that as we go along.
Thank you. Emilio, what grade would you give Francis Suarez, the mayor?
Listen, I composite grade, I would give him a C. Again, I think he's done great work in certain sectors, but I think also as mayor, he's been absent in some very important votes that we've had on the commission. We should have needed his voice more, if you will, throughout this circus that we see every other week. But I think he's genuinely put Miami back on the map for reasons other than the beach. So in that regards, his marketing skills were great.
Eileen?
I think he's a C. You know, you blend your grades. Really great in communications, really, really awful when it comes to taking care of the people that actually live here, whether it's filling potholes and certainly managing the commission and getting projects done. All of that was completely ignored, mostly, I guess, while he was in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Eileen.
Starting with Xavier, will you work in the private sector while serving as mayor or be a full-time executive? 15 seconds.
You know, the question is asked a lot. Oh my God, I only have 13 seconds left?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Rapid
Yes or
fire.
no?
I was paid $5,000 a year to be mayor. I was paid $6,000 a year to be commissioner. I have to practice law. I don't know how long I'm going to be mayor, but mostly just corporate things that I'll do. I won't be doing active litigation.
Emilio?
Yes, I still work. I still have a job. And as mayor, I will not accept any further employment, but I plan on keeping my current job. And if that gets to be 2 owners, then I'll revisit it. But I don't see myself going out and sitting on boards or anything of that nature.
Eileen?
I will be a full-time mayor just as I am a full-time county commissioner.
Thank you. The next question.
Ken?
Sorry, Ken.
Thank you. I have a young daughter, 2 daughters that are about to go into college, and a son that just got out of college. I will continue to work in consulting, but I can guarantee you I will never have a job with anybody who needs anything from City Hall, and I'll create the disclosure forms that make sure that we all know about it.
Thank you. Emilio, I begin with you. Recently, the commission attempted to move the city elections to even years with higher voter turnouts. That push ended in the courts, as you know. Do you think residents should decide on when future elections will be held?
Yes, that ended up in the courts because I sued the city, and that's the reason why we're all standing here. Absolutely. I read the charter. I guided myself with the charter. They knew better. The citizens have the final say when you move an election, and they have the final say through the charter on how long their term of office is.
Thank you. Eileen?
The people need to choose the date of the election, not the politicians. Yes, they should vote. I believe that'll be happening in August of next year.
Thank you, Eileen. Ken?
What they did was absolutely illegal, trying to give themselves an extra year, an extra salary without going to the voters. These sorts of reforms are needed. Even your voting is needed. Real term limits are needed, but we have to ask our residents by ballot.
Would you put it on the ballot, Xavier?
Yes, absolutely. I was the first person to support the Stronger Miami initiative, and I also gave him a little contribution. There are concerns about one of our opponents said that we would be on page 18 during presidential years and that people will not pay as much attention. But people want reform right now, so let's give them reform.
Thank you.
That was me.
That was you.
I don't think we're doing rebuttals for rapid fire, but we can address it later if
Rapid
you
rebuttal?
wish.
He was sympathetic.
Starting with Eileen.
Yeah.
Should Miami voters support the question on the November ballot to enact lifetime term limits for city officials?
Yes, I serve on a county commission that has term limits. It works very well. It's how you infuse a government with new ideas and a sense of urgency to accomplish something in 8 years. I have already marked up my ballot to vote yes.
Ken, lifetime term limits.
The only way we get out of the revolving door of family dynasties that have controlled Miami for decades is real lifetime term limits.
Xavier.
What's on the ballot is lifetime retroactive term limits. I was elected in 1985, and then to find out, in 40 years later, that I won't be able to run a second term doesn't make much sense. We already have term limitations in the city of Miami. If we want to make it lifetime prospectively, let's do it.
Thank you. Emilio.
If the voters want that, fine. I kind of defer. I think that we do have term limits. You serve 2 terms, you wait out. Listen, a perfect example is Commissioner Gort. He was a wonderful commissioner, was gone for a while, and then he came back. That should be it. If voters want to have lifetime, fine, but I'm very happy with what we have now.
That'll do it for our televised version of the Miami Mayoral Debate. Thank you so much. We are going to continue on our streaming platforms for more questions of the 4 candidates. Thank you so much. And on behalf of us, good night.
And we continue.
We will be rejoining the streaming platforms.
How long?
Now?
So thank you for sticking around with us here on our streaming platforms. We are going to continue now with some more targeted questions to each of you. And the rules apply, the same rules apply. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. I will begin with Eileen Higgins. You have talked a lot about the small businesses in the city and helping them succeed. You talked about permitting as well this evening. What other specific plans do you propose to help those businesses thrive?
Well, I launched a program called Elevate District 5, and when I'm elected mayor, I'll expand it to the entire city. Through that program, I've invested over $3 million into small businesses in my district. There's 8,000 of them. 1,000 of them have participated, many in training programs. I told you about the importance of making sure our community's ready for artificial intelligence. I've had over 100 of these entrepreneurs trained in how to use AI for operations or for marketing. Other programs have taught them how to make and generate their own financial statements. And then we have an in-depth cohort called Scale Up that works in large groups of 20, both in English and Spanish, to show them how they can scale their businesses. But importantly, the kinds of small businesses we have here don't often have access to capital. And so I have set up 2 revolving loan funds that are unique to our community. The first is the New Heights Microloan. That gets you your first access to capital. Might only be $5,000 at an interest rate of, let's say, very low, 3%. Then you grow up to the Rise Miami-Dade Fund, which is now capitalized at nearly $30 million. Again, only for Miami-Dade County businesses, the kinds of businesses that would never have access to an SBA loan, nor to a big bank. These are the kinds of programs that must be continued, and I will continue when I'm elected mayor.
Thank you, Eileen.
Emilio, a few years ago, Little Havana businessmen brought a suit claiming that Commissioner Joe Carollo and mayoral candidate had used city resources to target their businesses. Your testimony in that suit, your corroborating testimony about his actions, helped them win a $63 million judgment. I wonder, as the city manager at the time, do you think there is anything that you could have done differently to have prevented or stopped what was happening?
Great question. I was witness number 1 at that trial for that lawsuit. As a matter of fact, as manager, I did do things, which is one of the reasons that we had such acrimony, because I was being told by my staff, we are targeting a business. This is wrong. This in writing. We can't do this. We were sending fire inspectors to one restaurant 20 times in one calendar year. We were demanding that this restaurant produce evidence that they sold more food than liquor, as opposed to more liquor than food. It was targeted, it was uncalled for, and what happened in court is what needed to happen in court. We need to stop that. As manager, I worked with my staff. I made sure, a lot of times the information came to me after the fact. I got a call. I was told to go here. Why did you go there? Why didn't you call me? Because this is how we operate now, right? This is almost like the Wild West. I don't like you, therefore I'm going to put you out of business. And you know what? I'm bringing the city with me. That's got to stop. And we're still seeing the vestiges of that. There's still lawsuits. This individual has $100 million worth of settlements, legal fees, judgments. I mean, when does it stop? You know what we could do with $100 million in this city? You know how many elders we could help? You know how many young families we could give daycare vouchers to? $100 million is not insignificant.
Thank you.
Xavier, you've already discussed some of this evening about development in the city of Miami. Of course, the skyline is much different from when you were mayor to 2025. So how do you plan to deal with new development while balancing the infrastructure and the needs of the current residents of the city of Miami?
When I mentioned Edgewater, which is part of the sponsor of tonight's debate, I forgot to mention the last part, which is they're in a critical situation that might call for a moratorium, okay? And that's something that we have to think about. On an emergency basis, I think it would pass muster in a constitutional challenge. When Coconut Grove wanted to secede from the city, 1985, et cetera, what we did is we gave them good government. We stopped all the rezonings, okay? We stopped all the overdevelopment. We stopped even thinking of building next to the bay, you know, whether it was Parcel B later or Watson Island, another project by one of the my opponents here that's not here today. He wanted to turn that into something that I don't even want to get into it. Develop it, Watson Island, which is a precious resource. And so, you know, that's basically my answer. We have to stop overdevelopment. And if we have to do it with a moratorium, if we have to do it, downzoning is a little tricky constitutionally, but maybe in some situations we're going to have to stop or change our zoning code. But particularly important is don't allow anyone to build above the zoning envelope. The zoning envelope restricts what can be built, can't go beyond that at all.
Thank you, Xavier.
Ken, excuse me. As a city commissioner, you twice ran for Congress and as a result left office about a year early. How can voters feel assured that this is not a stepping stone job for you? And if elected, will you serve a full 4-year term?
The only reason I came back is to serve as mayor of this city for the transformational change that's needed. And whether I even serve only 1 term or 2, my goal is to be a transitional mayor that helps welcome in people who would otherwise never have thought they could run for office, just like I did the first time. We all want to help in whatever way we can. Eileen's leaving 3 years early to come and run for this seat. We want to help, we want to serve, but it's not meant to be a career. So in a sense, I'm glad I didn't win when I ran for Congress, because now that gives me the chance to be here now.
Eileen, you were mentioned, I don't know if you want to weigh in at all.
Yes, I did not make the decision to leave my county commission role lightly. And so it was very important to me to qualify by petition. So 3,000 residents of the city of Miami from my district and beyond have asked for me to be on the ballot. That means I have their support in this run. I intend to serve as their mayor very honorably and very respectfully.
Thank you.
Emilio, when we spoke and I interviewed you, you talked about the importance for you about transparency, bringing back transparency to city government. And you said that one of your ideas was one of the first things that you would do was to bring the state's Doge into the city. So what financial concerns do you have in the city of Miami?
Oh, what financial concerns don't we have in the city of Miami? We have a $3 billion budget, and we've all discussed here, we don't know where it's being spent. We have a $400 million bond issue that may or may not have been started yet. We have ARPA funds that perhaps they were given out as Publix gift cards to supporters. this is, listen, and it doesn't have to be the state. It can be anybody. But I think it's incumbent upon us when we walk into office to tell our taxpayers, to tell our residents, here's how you spent, here's your money. I'm going to show you how we've spent it. And when you go through it and you look at the stuff that probably shouldn't be there, the friends and family program, the contracts going to places that they should not be, then you can start peeling that onion back. And that's where you find the savings to be able to help the people on this side of the skyscrapers. Because right now, they don't trust us. And all that audit would do is just tell us, how are you spending your money? If these are your priorities, these are your expenses. I don't think that's unreasonable. Please, show me where's the money? Show me the money, and then from there we'll move forward and we'll start prioritizing on all these wonderful projects that we've all talked about. But we can't do any of this stuff unless we know how we're going to pay for it. And that's why I told you that, because we need to know and we need to tell our residents, this is what we have. Okay, now this is what we have. Let's move forward.
Thank you, Emilio.
This question is for Eileen. President Trump has taken harsh measures against big cities with liberal leaders. As a vocal Democrat, are you concerned that Trump would seek to make an example of Miami if you're elected mayor? And what is your plan to deal with pressure from Washington if that does in fact happen?
I don't believe he would take any action against the city of Miami. When you look at this place, we are a blended family. We live with all kinds of people. We have all kinds of political parties here. What I can tell you is this city is a safe place to live. We have one of the lowest crime rates in the country. That's fantastic. We have a capable fire rescue folks keeping people safe. We have a government that satisfies Washington's demands for how we live together. What we have going on here internally is an administration and a government that doesn't work for the people that live here. You just talked about perhaps the governor would send people in here to look beneath the hood. You're not going to need the governor to come when I'm the mayor. I'm going to be looking under the hood because there is waste in the city. We have to look for ways to save money. I have a list. I think my list is up to like 200 items that need to be done. I am an engineer, so I keep a lot of spreadsheets. But we have got to look at how we make this government work for the people. There's not a single person in this room that'll say, wow, the city of Miami is doing a good job for me. They're all going to have a complaint. I tried to get a permit to replace my windows. Well, that took 2 years. I tried to repave my driveway. Well, that took 1.5 years. I tried to build affordable housing, and that took 2.5 years. This city needs fixing. That's my plan, to get in there and make it efficient. And we're going to save money by doing it.
Thank you.
Ken, when we spoke, you called corruption in the city a big problem. You also told me that the city should not be paying for legal settlements. That means any type of settlement by any official would not be paid, including any potential settlement for any type of actions in office?
No, if you're acting in your capacity as a commissioner or mayor and someone sues the city, of course you have the coverage. But what happened in Joe Carollo's case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, where it sent back down and affirmed that he was not acting as a commissioner. It was a personal vendetta against businesses in our community. And so our insurance companies have dropped us, yet the other commissioners continue to protect him and pay his legal bills. It needs to stop. The taxpayer shouldn't be covering unethical behavior under any circumstance.
Thank you, Ken.
Question for Xavier. There has been some criticism here tonight of your son, the current mayor, and you even said that you might do some things differently. I wonder, is there any really important issue to Miami taxpayers and voters that you think your son should have done better on? And if so, what would you do differently?
We had an example in the last few months. The lawsuit that Emilio filed, he used the law firm that I recommended. I even got involved a little bit in the strategy at the beginning because they had individual defendants, and I recommended that they were not indispensable parties and that should be removed, which made the whole thing go a lot quicker. So, you know, that's an illustration. Commissioner Higgins mentioned something about being a pothole type mayor. I'm very different from my son in that sense. I don't like to travel a lot to the Middle East or otherwise, okay? I mean, I don't mind traveling to the Middle East, but that's not my style. My style is, I'm a hometown boy that loves to be in Miami, loves to be. Whenever there was a problem in the streets of Miami, who was the first person to arrive there? Sometimes before the police, whether it was Little Haiti or Overtown or anywhere else, it was me, and that's my style. Maurice Ferre, who was very good at marketing Miami, a lot of times was absent when things got hot. I am that kind of person. It's a different style, the same substance, by the way, and the same analytical capabilities. He just has a lot of more charisma, and he takes after his mom.
Thank you.
We have a little extra time, so we have one other question before closing statements. David's going to ask it.
We'll stick with Xavier for this question. As a former mayor, you know very well, excuse me, that the city's executive mayor doesn't have a ton of official duties, which means lobbying the city's commission is a very important job, a very important task to get your agenda across. How will you work with the city's famously mercurial city commission?
Well, it's going to change as of November 4th because we're not going to have the most troublesome commissioner on the dais. The other four that are going to be there and the new one, I get along with all of them. I have ties to all of them. But here's a key thing, okay? Everything that I've done in 40 years, I've done in a very weak mayor position first as mayor, with no veto power, no ability to appoint the manager, no ability to appoint the chairman of the commission. You can't imagine how much they all want to be appointed. Imagine what I can do with all those powers. And veto power is very important because I mentioned before the rezonings that were taking place before I was elected. And Rosario Kennedy and I came in. Occasionally we would have Miller Dawkins on our side, occasionally Carollo, occasionally Victor de Jure. But now you have veto. So unless four of them, can try to mess around with things, whatever it may be, it could be bidding, it could be zoning, it could be outright corruption. By the way, a lot of the corruption that hurts us is administrative corruption, okay? And it's bureaucrats making up and hiring consultants and going against what the people want. In the case of these crazy enormous seawalls that they've built in parks right next to the bay, which should have living shorelines. So imagine me with all those powers and being able to run the city.
Thank you, Xavier. Emilio, how will you get your agenda across, work with the city commission?
Well, I think I disagree with my friend Xavier. I don't consider the mayor's position a weak mayor. The mayor has three functions. The mayor selects the manager. The mayor has veto power, and the mayor can serve as the chairman of the commission, and I plan on exercising all of those. The commission will understand, and I'm sure they understand now, particularly after the drama with this lawsuit, that people are really upset. And we talked about a low turnout rate. I don't know, it was Ken that said we had a low turnout rate. People are motivated. People are energized. People are going to show up and vote this year. And I will work with the commission and let them know that my presence there is not because I'm a good-looking guy. My presence there is because folks are tired. Folks are really tired, and they want change now, and they want it to be bold change. I have no intention. I looked on online. Miami has had 44 mayors. I have no intentions of just being the 45th, the next guy. I'm going to be the mayor. I'm going to be that guy because it's got to get done, and you got to make hard decisions. And when you get into a position like this where you have the expectations of an entire community that are going to say, hey, we elected you, we put you there, now do something. And you have to do something. And I'm going to bring along those commissioners with me, and I'm going to help them understand that we're all going to do this together, that the campaign is over, now it's time to govern.
Thank you, Emilio.
A quick rebuttal, please.
Sure.
I actually agree with him. He misunderstood what I said. The current system is a much stronger mayor than what I had. I was a weak mayor in 1985, but I agree totally
Thank
with
you, sir.
Eileen, how do you work with the commission, and would you, like your opponent, consider sitting as the chairman of the commission and engaging in commission meetings?
So, I am not worried that this position is weak at all, because I have zero intention of being a weak mayor. Let me just talk a little bit about how I get things done on the county commission. I'm one of 13. The only way I change anything or implement anything or get to invest in anything is when 7 people agree with my idea. So what that means is you've got to, 1, have policies that make sense. You have to communicate them clearly. Sometimes that means you write an op-ed for the Herald if you think it's a complicated item. Sometimes you go on television, you make sure you share the story. So you always make sure you have your 7 votes. City of Miami, you only need 3 votes. What I have proven on the county commissioner is I can communicate complicated yet necessary policy changes, whether it's for our environment or to fund our transportation system and get that done. That's how I'm going to work with the city commission. Also, let's be very clear. I am going to be in City Hall every day in every meeting, right? The charter may say I can't tell people what to do, but I can watch what they are doing. And I have a ton of work experience, whether it's installing computer systems or building new facilities. So I will be able to make the suggestions for them to transform city government. This is not a weak system of government. You have got to show up and do the job.
Thank you, Eileen. Ken, you've sat on the city commission. How do you work with commissioners?
Thank you. And Commissioner Higgins didn't answer the question directly, but she said it in interviews before. She would not sit as the chair of the commission. And Mayor Suarez just said that he would appoint a chairman to the commission. Here's where Emilio and I agree. Wherever we otherwise disagree, this to me is a disqualifying factor for someone running for mayor if they do not choose to sit as the chairman of this commission. This is the problem we've had. The adult has not been in the room. And there's been a food fight every day. It's embarrassing for our city. A mayor's role is to lead, not to be out, not to be sitting on the side, but to be there, actually holding the gavel, running the agenda, having decorum, showing ethics, example with leadership. And if you're not present, like our mayor currently, how can you do that? So yes, the charter says the mayor shall be the presiding officer of the commission, and I will do that.
Well, that was a valiant effort to give everybody a rebuttal since you named everybody. Eileen, do you want to? No? Okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so it's that time for the closing statements. You each get 2 minutes for that statement. Since we began with Emilio and ended with Xavier the first time around with the first question, we're going to start with you, Xavier, with your closing statements. You have 2 minutes.
As mayor of Miami, with limited powers, I kickstarted Bayside, the Performing Arts Center. That's an interesting story when the Knight Ridder gave me the donation for the land. 2 police substations, kickstarted Southeast Overtown Park West, the largest affordable housing project in the history of Miami. Now 4,000 units being built or rehabbed. 2 sports franchises, the Miami Arena and Major League Baseball. NBA basketball with the Miami Arena and Major League Baseball. You should have been there when I made the presentation in New York on Major League Baseball. I brought Ron Fraser from the Miami Hurricanes, and his task was to prove that it never rains in Miami. So I guided through a $300 million Liberty Square redevelopment, another one of these negotiated bids, and we ended up choosing a company that is building it, and it was my recommendation, even though the chairwoman wanted someone different. The last $45 million of the Science Museum went through my committee. Nobody could explain how we were going to find $45 million by capitalizing future revenues and turning a donation, a pledge from Phil Frost into an actual short-term loan, but I did that. As county commissioner, I also did 4 after-school programs with my own funding, 4 vocational programs in the inner city schools. These are fine folks. They don't have a track record anywhere near that, and they don't have any specific platforms. Okay, we're going to increase the homestead exemption. We're going to make public transit affordable, free, ideally, as it is in Miami. We're going to make sure that the Metro Mover doesn't charge you, as one of my opponents wants to do. And we're going to reform insurance. Didn't get to talk about that today, but you'll see it in my correspondence and maybe ads on TV, if I can afford them.
Thank you, Xavier.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Ken.
Thank you again for this forum. Without any doubt, nobody who has watched tonight will not be able to make their decision. And more than anything, they know there's an election happening this year, and they know the choices before them. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the elephant not in the room is Joe Carollo. With over $1 million in the bank and being underestimated at every turn, Joe Carollo could absolutely be the next mayor of Miami. Don't underestimate him. But beyond that, Miami has a choice between yesterday, tomorrow, corruption or reform, affordable housing or nothing, and they have to make that choice. If these are your reformers here on the stage, you need to recognize the differences between them as well. While I applaud Emilio for bringing the lawsuit, I disagree with him, and I believe the colonel will militarize our police against the homeless and the immigrants, as he said in interviews. He'd roll out the red carpet for the state and federal government instead of standing up against it where needed for our immigrant residents. I was born here. I'm raising a young family here. My mother was an immigrant from Japan in the 60s. My dad worked in Cuba as an American all through the 50s in a toy factory until he lost everything when the regime came and took it and kicked him out. I know Miami's story. We are Miami, and we're ready for this change. So I really hope that Miami will consider me. KenRussellforMayor.com. I'm ready to fight for us. I'm ready for the transformational change that is absolutely needed without bowing to special interests, without giving into a bully commission, but leading in the transformation that we need for Miami. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Eileen.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think I've shared with you tonight the importance of working for the people. And let me tell you just a tiny bit about my background. I got my start in engineering in manufacturing, and then worked for nearly 2 decades in the private sector, running some very large divisions of companies you'll know the names of. But when I was in my mid-40s, I had to do an exercise at a corporate retreat, as one is like to do. And that exercise was writing my own obituary. And the next morning, when we had to process that, we were asked 2 questions. One is what's in there that you're proud of and how you'll be remembered. And the other is what's missing. And within a year, I had quit my big corporate job. I was the director of the Peace Corps in Belize, and I went on to serve this nation as a diplomat in the Foreign Service. When I settled in Miami, I wanted to keep making a difference, and that's what led to me in 2018 serving on the County Commission. I am just a hard worker. I get up every day and I go to County Hall. And as a result of those efforts, I've built affordable housing, I've expanded transit, I've enhanced resiliency issues, I've worked on small business support. That's all I'm gonna do when I get to the city of Miami. There's gonna be no drama, there's gonna be no corruption, there's gonna be no yelling. It's just me every day going to work on your behalf to try to get things done, the things you have told me you want to have happen in the city that you love, the city that I love, the city that should be the best place on earth.
Thank you, Eileen. Emilio.
Do I get to respond since you mentioned my name?
Absolutely, you have 2 minutes.
No. With respect, Ken,
You can't go over your 2.
Yeah, you need to fire who prepared your notes. At no point have I ever militarized the police against the homeless. Quite the contrary, I encourage our police department to be sympathetic with the homeless and to make sure that they're not literally dying on sidewalks, that we provide a service, that we provide somewhere for them to stay. You mentioned trust earlier. Our municipal government has failed our residents. That's why we're here, all of us. We've let them down. We've let them down and they don't trust us. We've created a predator city where the government is the prey and the government is a predator and the citizens are the prey. Listen, we are probably violating an ordinance being here today because that's the way we operate. Our Constitution has 27 amendments. Our Articles of Confederation had 13 articles. I had an attorney look up. There are 1,610 city ordinances right now. We have just violated something, just being here. So my point is, we need reform and we need reform bad. Traditionally, we campaign on bringing out the worst fears, scaring people. If you elect so-and-so, he's a communist, he's this, he's that. We don't ever look bold, we don't ever aim high, and that's what I want to do. I want to instill trust. We have an obligation with our residents. We can't mistreat our residents. Our residents go to a commission meeting and they're shouted down. They're told they can't talk. How dare they? Our residents are the ones that put us there in the first place. Public service and being mayor has to be vocational. It isn't about making money. It isn't about making my ego bigger. It isn't about setting me up for another office or clickbait or this or that. It's vocational. You got to want to do it. I've been there. I've done that. I've worked at the highest levels of government. And I know that I can be the very best mayor this city has seen in a very long time. I'm not perfect, but by God, we're going to get things done under Emilio Gonzalez. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And now the audience can clap. A big round of applause to our candidates. Election day is November 4th. Early voting begins October 25th. Good luck to our candidates. And on behalf of David Smiley and myself, thank you and good night.